What happens when you combine military precision with martial arts brutality? Due to the love that I've gotten from the Punisher's fighting styles video, I decided to do something along the lines of that and wanted to start another series. In this series, we break down the Punisher's most savage close quarters combat sequences and explain why every move he makes is ruthlessly effective. As the video title states, we will explore how the Punisher defends himself from a wrist grab. Now, let's set the stage. Frank Castle, the Punisher, is being approached at Ryker's Island by a hostile inmate who grabs his wrist. For most people, this might seem like a disadvantage, but for someone like the Punisher, it's an invitation to dismantle an opponent piece by piece. First, Castle grabs the inmate's wrist, locking it down. This isn't just to stop the escape. It immobilizes the limb and sets up the next move. He then strikes the metacarpals, the long bones on the top of the hand. A focused strike here isn't just painful. It could fracture the bones, compromise grip strength, and shock the radial and ulnar nerves, which radiate pain up the arm. With the attacker's arm now useless and under control, Castle shifts it aside, exposing one of the most vulnerable targets in the human body, the floating ribs. These ribs are not connected to the sternum and are prone to breaking under focused impact due to how fragile they are. Castle then delivers a powerful uppercut right into the floating ribs. The force drives upward, collapsing the rib cage inward. Not only can this fracture the ribs, but it could potentially cause internal bleeding or puncture vital organs like the liver. The pain is enough to incapacitate anyone, street fighters and professional fighters alike. Next, the Punisher never releases the arm. Instead, he takes it one step further by manipulating the elbow joint, forcing it to move outside of its natural sagittal plane. The elbow is a hinge joint. When pressure is applied laterally or twisted against its natural movement, dislocation or ligament rupture is almost guaranteed. To finish it off, Punisher executes a modified Tayatoshi, a classic judo throw, but he calls this brutal variation the Devil's Break. Instead of a clean projection, Castle applies extra torque on the arm, dislocating the shoulder socket mid-throw. This technique's roots can be found in Shorin-ryu karate, a system Castle was canonically trained in. So let's recap. 1. He applies the wrist control plus metacarpal bone strike, which disables the grip. 2. The floating rib uppercut, which incapacitates the torso. 3. An elbow joint break, which ensures the arm is out of commission. And then 4. The Devil's Break, which is a throw that also disjoints in one brutal finish. Now, to close this out, the techniques applied here are clearly designed to neutralize a threat as quickly and violently as possible. It's tactical, clinical, and very Punisher. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to punch the like button, share the video, and your thoughts in the comment section. And let me know if you would like to see more martial art breakdowns. Lastly, if you haven't already, please subscribe, and most importantly, do not try this at home. Punisher Mythos is out.
In New York City, danger rides the subway, but tonight, these muggers boarded the wrong train. Frank Castle, the Punisher, steps onto the train. His target, a mugger holding an elderly woman hostage at knife point. Without hesitation, the Punisher advances, and the mugger makes the first move. The mugger throws a head-height round kick, likely inspired by flashy Van Damme movies, but flashy doesn't work against brutal efficiency. The Punisher defends this by using a technique known as Hasami Uke, a scissor block found in karate. It's a simultaneous outward and downward block designed for real-world self-defense. The mugger, now desperate, throws a wild right hook. The Punisher pulls from his ninjutsu experience as he intercepts it with an outside block while driving his knuckles deep into the mugger's bicep brachii, targeting the musculocutaneous nerve. This nerve is responsible for flexion at the elbow and sensation along the forearm. A sudden sharp trauma here can cause immediate motor impairment, loss of grip strength, and intense radiating pain, effectively disabling the mugger's dominant arm. Without hesitation, the Punisher grabs the mugger's jacket, using it as leverage and pulls him directly into a brutal punch. This isn't random. Biomechanically, pulling an opponent into a strike exponentially increases impact force by combining both bodies' mass and speed. The target, the temporal bone, one of the thinnest and most vulnerable areas of the skull. This ultimately explains why the mugger's head spun like an owl's. A strike here can cause loss of consciousness, concussions, intracranial bleeding, or even fatal brain trauma. It's as precise as it is merciless. The mugger remains on his feet, but the Punisher escalates. He delivers a low side kick directly behind the mugger's knee joint, targeting the popliteal fossa. The sheer force shatters the patella, which is commonly known as the kneecap, and this ultimately destroys the structure of the knee joint, rendering the mugger unable to stand or flee. To finish the encounter, Castle seizes the mugger's hair, wrenching his head backwards and exposing the vulnerable cervical spine. He then unleashes a downward elbow strike. A trained downward elbow strike can generate forces upward of 800 to 1200 pounds per square inch, easily enough to fracture facial bones or dislocate vertebrae. With the head hyperextended, the impact amplifies spinal compression, risking traumatic cervical injuries such as disc herniation, vertebral fracture, or paralysis. For the Punisher, there are no second chances, only consequences. Now, the techniques you just saw are not just for show. They're rooted in real martial arts systems developed for survival when lives were on the line. In real life, these aren't techniques to use lightly or at all outside of life or death scenarios. They're devastating, they're lethal, and they carry consequences, legally and morally. This breakdown is for education and entertainment purposes only, to show the science, the strategy, and the brutal efficiency behind Punisher's style. Do not attempt these moves at home, in training without professional supervision, or outside of a serious, structured martial arts setting. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to punch the like button, share the video and your thoughts in the comment section, and let me know if you would like to see more martial arts breakdowns. Lastly, if you haven't already, please subscribe, and remember, respect the arts, respect the danger, train smart, and most importantly, stay safe. The Punisher Mythos is out. The Punisher gets confronted by two cold-blooded Norwegian twins, Eric and Lars Hells, hired killers working for a cocaine boss. They came to kill Frank Castle. Instead, he sends them straight to hell, using one of the most savage, efficient gun disarms ever seen in comics. Let's break down every brutal second of this close quarters engagement. We open on Frank Castle face to face with both twins. Eric has a pistol already trained on him. Full extension, dominant eye lined up with the front sight. This is a classic close range ambush, and Frank is on the back foot. But notice his posture, he's not panicked. His hands are in motion but not aggressive. He's setting the trap. Eric's signature move, 3 rounds to the forehead. But Frank decides not to wait for the signing. Castle makes his move. He quickly shifts off the center line to his right. Why is this important? Because the number one rule of surviving a gun threat is to get off the line of fire. Even if you control the gun, if you're still in front of the muzzle, you're dead. As he moves, Castle simultaneously grabs the slide of the pistol with his left hand. This is a high-risk, high-reward maneuver. By clamping down on the slide, Frank prevents the weapon from cycling, meaning it won't fire more than once, even if it does discharge. Now here's where it gets savage. The Punisher twists the weapon back and downward toward Eric, but Eric's finger is still inside the trigger guard. As the weapon is wrenched, that finger doesn't move. The trigger guard becomes a vice, snapping Eric's finger instantly. This does two brutal things to Eric: instant mechanical disablement and neurological shock. His trigger finger is useless now. There's no way he can fire another shot even if he regains control. The body often reacts to sudden intense pain with disorientation, loss of grip strength, and even temporary paralysis in the hand. As Castle continues to twist, the pressure causes Eric's finger to involuntarily pull the trigger. One round is fired, and it slams into Lars' chest. Lars never saw it coming. Frank just used his own twin's weapon with no trigger contact from his own hand to take him out. That's tactical efficiency and psychological warfare. Eric, now in shock from his broken finger and seeing his brother collapse, is wide open. Castle capitalizes immediately. He delivers a powerful front kick to the chin, snapping it upward. This isn't a flashy move, it's practical and effective. The result? Whiplash to the neck, loss of balance, and total disorientation. Eric is thrown backwards, and Punisher now has full control of the engagement. As Eric scrambles, Castle doesn't hesitate. He draws down, delivers a single, precise shot. Boom! We don't see the impact, but given Castle's positioning and the exit flash, it's likely a headshot. No wasted ammo, no drawn-out struggle. In total, 2 rounds, 2 bodies. The sequence is not just brutal, it's masterful. The Punisher uses biomechanics, psychology, and his environment, all in under 10 seconds. The twins were hired to kill. Instead, they just became another 2 names on Castle's war journal. Now, the techniques you saw are not for show. They're rooted in real martial arts systems developed for survival when lives were on the line. In real life, these aren't techniques to use lightly or at all outside of life or death scenarios. They're devastating, they're lethal, and they carry consequences legally and morally. This breakdown is for education and entertainment purposes only, to show the science, the strategy, and the brutal efficiency behind Punisher's style. Do not attempt these moves at home in training without professional supervision or outside of a serious structured martial arts setting. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to punch the like button, share the video and your thoughts in the comment section, and let me know if you'd like to see more martial art breakdowns. Lastly, if you haven't already, please subscribe, and remember, respect the arts, respect the danger. Train smart and stay safe. The Punisher Mythos is out. When you're Frank Castle, you don't go looking for trouble, but trouble always seems to find you. And when it does, it gets handled fast. Meet Thomasini, a 2-bit assassin with a bala song and a big mouth. He thinks he's about to make a name for himself by ambushing the Punisher. He's cocky, fast, but not smart. Here's the first move. Punisher traps the incoming knife hand using a 2-hand disarm technique. One hand catches the wrist to stop momentum, while the other parries the hand. This prevents the knife from advancing and when done rapidly, loosens the grip. Moreover, a popping sound is noted, likely a wrist dislocation or tendon snap due to overextension. With Thomasini already stunned, Castle slides into a standing armbar, hyperextending the elbow. The elbow joint is a hinge joint and only bends in one direction. By controlling the wrist and rotating Thomasini's shoulder inward while pulling on the forearm, Frank hyperextends the elbow. This could lead to a ligament tear, elbow dislocation, or even a humerus fracture if enough torque is applied. Once the arm breaks, Thomasini loses the ability to fight with that limb, and shock begins to set in. This is painful, disabling, and psychologically demoralizing. While Frank had the standing armbar, he executes a devastating knee to the solar plexus. Why? Because the solar plexus hit knocks the wind out and can cause diaphragm spasms, making it impossible to breathe. The knee folds Thomasini's torso, disrupts his posture, and exposes his upper body for the next attack. It also disorients his nervous system, making follow-up defense extremely difficult. Now, for the final touch. Castle grabs Thomasini by the collar and drives his skull into a brick wall. The wall is a rigid, unforgiving structure. There's no give, which means all the force transfers directly into Thomasini's skull and neck. Likely injuries include nasal fracture, orbital fracture, concussion, and cervical spine whiplash or trauma. This is a finishing technique meant to disorient, concuss, and demoralize. Moreover, Frank delivers an elbow to the occipital lobe. This is extremely dangerous and potentially fatal because the skull in that region is thin, offering little protection for the brain. A powerful blow can cause a concussion, brain bleed, or diffuse axonal injury, all of which may lead to immediate unconsciousness or death. It could also damage the brainstem and upper spinal cord, which controls vital functions like breathing and even the heart rate. Since the strike is often unseen, the victim can't brace for impact, making the damage even worse. In Thomasini's case, already injured and disoriented, a direct elbow from the Punisher to the occipital region could easily result in a fatal neurological shutdown. This explains why Thomasini's smirk is gone, because his nervous system is now in full overload. Pain, disorientation, broken bones, and fear have completely overtaken him. Thomasini thought that he had the edge because he had a blade. He chose poorly by being cocky and arrogant because he thought that he had the drop on him. What Thomasini failed to realize is that the Punisher stays ready so that he never has to get ready. Now, if you want more Punisher CQC breakdowns, tactical analysis, and storytelling, please punish that like button, comment, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. The Punisher Mythos is out. Hello everyone, this is the Punisher Mythos, and in this video, the Punisher is going to demonstrate how to effectively take down multiple assailants in one fell swoop. In broad daylight, there are two thugs that are escorting Frank Castle to a car. Their orders are simple: deliver him to their boss, Mrs. Sperino. Frank walks between them, calm and composed, but underneath that stillness is the mind of a Marine, sizing them up, calculating every angle, every weakness, and every escape. As they approach the car, Frank spices things up and suddenly turns to the assailant on his right and launches what is known as a spear hand, fingers tight and extended, directly into the man's throat. This isn't a wild attack, it's a precision strike. The spear hand, commonly seen in Sho and Ryu karate, targets the trachea with pinpoint accuracy. It crushes the windpipe, causes gagging, intense pain, and momentary paralysis. Breathing becomes a struggle, and panic sets in instantly. The man reels backwards, too shocked to scream and too damaged to recover. Without hesitation, Frank then pivots and drives a low side kick into the front of the other thug's knee, not from the side but straight through the joint. A low side kick to the front of the knee is a joint-destroying technique. The kick, powered by Frank's hips and core, acts like a battering ram. It can cause hyperextension, ligament rupture, or even dislocation. The leg collapses and the body follows. The second man's leg is bent unnaturally, and it's making him scream in pain. Frank then immediately grabs the first man's arm, now choking and off balance, and pulls him into a hammerlock. He doesn't pause, he redirects the man forward, aligning him perfectly for the finishing technique. With ruthless timing, Frank smashes his captive's skull directly into the other thug's head. Now the hammerlock immobilizes one attacker, locking his elbow and shoulder, and the forced movement keeps him under control. The double skull collision creates traumatic brain injury to both assailants, and both men will likely suffer concussions, disorientation, and possible skull fractures. In under 7 seconds, 2 armed escorts are reduced to broken bodies on the pavement, and in under 7 seconds, he proves that sometimes 2 heads are better than 1. Now, as always, the techniques you just saw are not just for show. They're rooted in real martial arts systems developed for survival and self-defense. In real life, these aren't techniques to use lightly, or at all outside of life or death scenarios. They're devastating, they're lethal, and they carry consequences, legally and morally. This breakdown is for education and entertainment purposes only, to show the science, the strategy, and the brutal efficiency behind the Punisher style. Do not attempt these moves at home, in training without professional supervision, or outside of a serious, structured martial arts setting. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to punch the like button, share the video and your thoughts in the comment section, and let me know if you'd like to see more martial arts breakdowns. Lastly, if you haven't already, please subscribe, and remember, respect the martial arts and respect the Punisher. Train smart and stay safe. Punisher Mythos is out. The Punisher walks down the subway tunnel like he's exhausted, vulnerable, maybe even scared. But that's the mask. In reality, he's hunting. A local crew has been robbing, stabbing, and terrorizing people in these tunnels for weeks, and tonight, Frank is ending it. The first thug steps up loud and confident, thinking the Punisher is an easy target. He never sees the Kali stick coming. The Punisher pulls a Kali stick from a rig in his coat and cracks him across the side of the face so hard the jaw likely dislocates on impact, and the orbital bone around the eye absorbs so much force that it probably fractures. A shot like that doesn't just hurt, it overloads the brain with trauma and shuts the lights off instantly. The man drops unconscious before he even feels the pain. Frank then pulls out his gun and tells the rest of them the rules, one at a time. If any of them run or rush him together, he'll put a bullet through the next man's skull. It's not a threat, it's a promise meant to freeze their instincts, and it works. The guy with the pipe steps up next, thinking the weapon gives him an advantage. Frank doesn't even try to block the pipe. Instead, he smashes the thug's hand with the Kali stick strike that crushes the metacarpal bones instantly. When the bones in your hand break, you lose the ability to grip anything, let alone fight. The pipe then hits the floor. The thug's momentum carries him forward, and Frank redirects it with the strike to the popliteal region behind the knee. That spot is full of nerves and controls all the stabilizing muscles in the joint. One good hit collapses the leg, destroying the ability to stand or resist. The thug screams, falls, and he's done. The next man pulls a knife. Frank isn't fazed. He pulls out a high-carbon stainless steel combat blade designed by Robert Tuzuola, a knife made specifically for close quarters killing. The thug tries to intimidate Frank by bragging about how many people he stabbed, but Frank has seen real killers. The man lunges with a halfway committed thrust, going low toward the gut and then trying to rip upward. Frank tracks every movement because he's seen this angle 1,000 times. He answers with a Kali principle called defang the snake, which means you don't fight the weapon, you destroy the limb holding it. As the blade flashes upward, Frank slices clean across the attacker's wrist, severing the tendons that allow the fingers to grip. The weapon is gone before the thug even realizes his hand has failed him. Then Frank drives the blade straight into the carotid artery. That's a high-pressure blood vessel. When it's punctured, blood loss is rapid, oxygen stops flowing to the brain, and the body collapses within seconds. The Punisher doesn't hesitate. He finishes with a stab into the liver, a deep, agonizing wound that floods the body with shock. Now the biggest thug steps forward with a knife, but Frank demands he drop it and fight him with bare hands. That alone is psychological warfare, forcing the man out of his comfort zone. The thug throws a punch. Frank meets the limb with his elbow in a way that both blocks the strike and breaks the bone in the attacker's hand at the same time. This is another Kali concept called limb destruction. You don't just block, you punish the limb for daring to attack. The thug's hand is ruined instantly. Frank takes advantage of the pain spike and drives a knee straight into the groin, a strike that overloads the pelvic nerves and causes the entire body to fold. As the thug jerks forward, Punisher follows up with an upward elbow to the chin. That kind of strike shoots the head backward violently, whiplashing the neck and rattling the brain inside the skull. Before the man could even fall, Frank stops down on his foot, breaking multiple metatarsal bones. The foot can't bear weight anymore, so the man can't stand even if he somehow recovers. Frank caps it with a brutal headbutt, a disorienting concussive jolt that turns the thug into dead weight. Surprisingly, the biggest man of the group is still standing, and he comes in with a flashy high roundhouse kick, the kind of move you see in Van Damme movies. High kicks are powerful but risky. They raise your center of gravity and expose your supporting leg. Frank reads it instantly. He performs a classic counter, blocking to the outside of the kick, which removes its power, and then sweeping the standing leg. The big thug's body goes horizontal instantly. Frank then catches him in the fall and snaps his neck. No hesitation, no wasted movement. Finally, Frank walks back to the first guy, the one who's still conscious but broken from the orbital strike. He crouches down, calm as ever, and tells him he's going to live, but he needs him to deliver a message. Tell your crew to stay out of the subways because down here you belong to me, the Punisher. Now, as always, the techniques you just saw are not for show. They're rooted in real-life martial arts systems developed for survival and self-defense. In real life, these aren't techniques to use lightly, or at all outside of life or death scenarios. They're devastating, they're lethal, and they carry consequences legally and morally. This breakdown is for education and entertainment purposes only, to show the science, the strategy, and the brutal efficiency behind the Punisher's style. Do not attempt these moves at home, in training without professional supervision, or outside of a serious, structured martial arts setting. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to punch the like button, share the video, and your thoughts in the comment section, and let me know if you'd like to see more martial art breakdowns. Lastly, if you haven't already, please subscribe. Train smart and stay safe. The Punisher Mythos is out.